Hey guys, got another exciting video for you here at Doc Lil Talks Comics. This one is not in as great a shape as my copy of ASM 375 that I did, but this is a really great story. It's Captain America 272 with an awesome cover by Mike Zeck and John Beatty. And like I said, the pages in here are kind of yellowed compared to the other. And we've got J.M. DeMatteis as writer and Mike Zeck as penciler with John Beatty as inker. And it starts off that Cap is riding his motorcycle in the rain and somebody runs out in front of him and he finds this cabbie who's got his throat cut. And meanwhile, Sam Wilson comes to visit Cap, and he's disillusioned with how the streets are for young black men, and how he feels like nothing he does helps. He says, I've been working so long, so hard to do something decent around here, working with kids as a social worker, busting my hump as the Falcon, but what's the freaking use? The whole city's a jungle. We're just a bunch of animals trying to claw our way out. And Steve says, if you didn't try, 2 more would have taken a fast train to nowhere, but because of you, they didn't. Because of you, they survived. And if each one of us just tries to reach out to 1 or 2 others, and he's like, spare me the speech, I don't want to hear it. And so he goes out as the Falcon, and he finds this gangbanger named Little Angel. And Little Angel's friends catch up with him and said, hey, we got an issue with him, and that's why we beat him up like that. And so Falcon says, you know what, try it on me, see how it goes. And he gets Little Angel home. But as he's getting Little Angel home, Captain America gets sidetracked again on his motorcycle by somebody who jumps out of the way and screams like he hit him. And then he gets his face slashed. Well, turns out that he meets this character in a cloak, and the guy controls rats. Cap tries to get a little separation, and he says, why do you have to have your rats do your bidding for you? Why can't you face me like a man? And he's like, because I'm not a man. I am death, and I am vermin. So this is the first appearance of Vermin, who would go on to be the central character in another DeMatteis story, one of my favorite stories, which is The Child Within from Spectacular Spider-Man 178 through 183. So you get to see this awesome Mike Zeck artwork again with Vermin, and he says, my masters tell me that Captain America must die. You're human, you're frail, you have emotions, and you're soft emotionally and physically. I don't have those things. My masters tell me who has to go, and they've said you have to go. Well, come to find out that Sam Wilson gets invited into Little Angel's mom's house, and they're sitting there talking and just trying to figure out how to help these kids on the street that are having problems. And Little Angel yells, and he says, she says, do you have a nightmare? And he said, yeah, but it wasn't a sleeping nightmare. He's like, some of those young watcher cats came after me and my friends this evening, and we had a gun, and I shot somebody tonight. And Sam Wilson goes from being worried about him, he says, you miserable little animal, do you know what you did? And he says, say your prayers, because I'm going to take your scrawny neck and wring it. And then he just stops. And it's an emotional moment where he realizes he's been on edge for too long, and he feels like he hasn't made a difference in anybody's life. He feels like all the little angels out there are all out for themselves, and they're all out to get what is good for them and nobody else. They don't care about anybody else. Meanwhile, we still see Captain America struggling with Vermin, who throws him right off of this high-rise building, and eventually he just starts waylaying into him. And he says, you are an animal, Vermin, a gutter rat without a shred of humanity in your soul. You're the embodiment of the disease, all the death, all the pain that haunts these city streets. Well, I'm feeding some of that pain back to you. And he says, you're going to hurt, you're going to bleed. And at that point, you see another part of Vermin, which is an interesting part of Vermin. It's like he can take that anger, that frustration, and psychically amp it up to make you kind of lose control. And so he realizes at the same time, he says, what am I doing? So he comes to the same conclusion that Sam Wilson came to when he said he was going to wring a little angel's neck. He says, I've come to the edge. And he said, but heaven help me, I never knew that I could come so close. And in the end, you get to see Sam and Steve reunite, and he's like, what happened to you? And he's like, I just ran into some truth. So this feels like a one-off, okay? This was a great run, but this feels like a one-off. It feels like a character that we may never see again. And then he turns out to be such an interesting psychological study, such an interesting character. And it all started in the pages of Captain America 272. So if you like decompressed storytelling, but getting a whole complete story in one issue, understanding who these villains are, not glorifying them, not making excuses for what has happened to them and how they've become the way that they are, but instead understanding, yes, you might have had a difficult life, but you have to pay the consequences for, the wrong that you've done. If you like those kind of stories, if you like the idea of Captain America, if you like the idea of Sam Wilson, check this book out. You will not be disappointed. I think these guys ran from somewhere around like 266 maybe, all the way through almost issue 300 before JMD left and moved on to something else. And I think Mike Zeck left about the same time, so maybe 284, 283, 284. So it wasn't the longest run, but it was an excellent run, and it followed up John Byrne's run on the title beforehand. So anyway, guys, check this first appearance of Venom. I keep trying to say Venom since I was talking about Venom in the last book. Check out this first appearance of Vermin, and you get to understand it's like issue 280 with the Scarecrow. That's another great issue that we'll talk about, in the future. But in the meantime, guys, be kind to yourself. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will catch you next go around.